In this video, we're looking at Jean Piaget's cognitive theory that talks about learning from the very beginning to adult age, how children learn. And this is a very critical research because it tells us a lot about the learning process. The learning process from the beginning, and as children grow, how they learn and how they understand and how they interact and how they see the world. All right, so we're going to begin with the first stage, essentially from 18 months to 24 months, 2 years, and that is the sensory motor stage. The sensory motor stage talks about, this is the stage right here, talks about how children learn from birth, essentially, to around 18 months to 24 months. And this is very critical because this is the beginning of the learning process, according to Piaget. They learn through movements and sensations, right? So at this age, a 2 years, span from birth to about 18 months to 24 months, they learn through movements and sensations, right? So movements around them, movements that they make themselves, and sensations. Learning occurs through natural actions, right? Like listening. When parents talk to them, like, don't do this, come here, or do it this way, or don't go there, and so forth. Holding, looking, and touching. These are all things that kids do. They listen, they hold, they look, and they touch a lot. They move around, especially when they're crawling, they move around, they touch tables, they touch chairs, they touch electronics, and they touch, anything within their sights, right? And they learn through that. And when they touch, they begin to understand what those things are. They begin to be very curious about what those things are and begin to try to make sense out of it, right? So learning occurs through natural actions, right? When they walk, they crawl, that's natural. When they walk, that's natural. As listening as well, right? So the actions such as listening, holding, looking, and touching, they get to learn that they are not the same as the people around them, right? So at this age, they begin to distinguish between themselves and people around them, other kids or adults around them. Like, they begin to understand that, wait a minute, we're not the same. These are different people, these are individuals, and we are not the same people. They begin to get that sense, right, at this age. So the sensory motor age is again from birth to 18 months to 24 months. They learn through movements and sensations. Learning occurs through natural actions such as listening, holding, looking, and touching. And of course, they get to learn that they are not the same people as those that are around them, especially their parents and their siblings. Then they move on to the toddler stage, right? Toddlerhood, or pre-operational, as the psychologists called it. Toddlerhood, right? So this is from 18 months to 24 months, right? And then through early childhood. So we're talking about at least 7 years of age, right? So during this time, they learn with the use of words and pictures to represent objects, right? They're in school now. They've been through daycare. They are, for the most part, in formal school, and they learn through pictures, right, to represent objects. So houses, cars, animals, for example, trees, for example, right? And they begin to learn through these things. When they see those pictures, they begin to match the pictures with the real life object, right? So when they see a picture of an animal, they say, this is a lion, for example. This is a tiger, for example, right? So they see life centered around them with other people's perspectives completely alien to them, right? So they're not thinking about what you think, what the adults around them think. They're not thinking about that. They're thinking about their own, how they see life and how they learn, right? So they are not concerned about other people's opinion during this stage, the toddlerhood stage. Getting better with language and thinking, that still tend to think in very concrete terms, right? So they think in very concrete terms, in very absolute terms, right? What they see is what they see. There couldn't be any variations. There couldn't be anything different from it. What they see is what they see at this age. And that's what is meant by concrete terms, right? So getting better with language, so they begin to interact, they begin to speak and share their opinion, share their perspective on things and so forth, but their thinking is still concrete, it's still in absolute terms. So again, what they see is what they see. It'd be difficult to convince them at this stage. And then they move on to the concrete operational stage, which is age 7 to 11. And here, and this is the third stage, And here they begin to think logically about concrete events, right? So those concrete things they saw in the previous stage, the toddlerhood stage, they begin to think about it a bit more logically, right? They begin to understand what those things are. They begin to take a look at those things closely and more critically. They begin to ask questions. Why is this way? Why is that way? They begin to ask those questions in a bid to get more information so that they can understand what those events are. So they begin to think logically about concrete events. The thinking becomes more logical and organized, but still very concrete, right? So again, we come back to this point here that their thinking is concrete. Even though they are beginning to think logically and rationally, they still see things as concrete, right? But again, the difference here is they are probing, they are asking questions, they are curious, and that's the difference here, right? So thinking becomes more logical and organized, but still very concrete. They begin using inductive logic, right, or reasoning from specific information to a general principle, right? So they begin using inductive logic or reasoning from specific information to general principles, right? So again, they begin to look at how things can be generalized, right? What they see and what they experience and what they hear, what they learn, how those things can be generalized to impact more, or to broaden their learning and to broaden their experience, right? And that's what inductive logic is about, right? So reasoning from specific information they get to general principles, right? So how do they make that connection between specific information to general principles? So here they begin to learn those things, right? So the third stage then, operational, concrete operational stage, from age 7 to 11, is where they begin to think logically about concrete events. Thinking becomes more logical and organized. This is very important because this is the first time they're thinking in organized fashion. So concrete is a constant. Begin using inductive logic or reasoning from specific information to a general principle, right? Again, here they begin to make the connection between the specific things they learn in school and they learn at home and begin to generalize those things in society. They begin to see in a broader term. All right, so the final stage then is the adolescent to adulthood, formal operational stage. Adolescents to through adulthood, they begin to think abstractly and reason about hypothetical problems, right? So thinking becomes more complex and more analytical, and thinking becomes more critical, and they think deeper now. They've been through they've been through at least elementary school, and most likely they're in secondary school, and some of them are in university and postgraduate studies and so forth. So they begin to think critically, they begin to think abstractly, they begin to understand things from different perspectives, from the abstract perspective, and also using hypothetical problems, right? Reason about hypothetical problems. What if this happens? What if that happens? How do we solve this problem? How do we tackle this? And so forth. And then it says here, begins to think more about moral, philosophical, ethical, social, and political issues that require theoretical and abstract reasoning. And this is very key: moral, philosophical, ethical, social, political, right? Issues that require theoretical and abstract reasoning. Now their thinking is expanding, right? It has gone from abstract to hypothetical problems. Now we talk about moral, right? If they've added more components and elements to the thinking, which is very broad, which is how most people think, right? So moral, philosophical, ethical, social, political, and we can even add other factors like economics, right? Socioeconomic status, economics, begin to think in those terms, right? And they require theoretical and abstract reasoning. So they begin to attach theories to this thinking on morality, philosophy, ethical, right? Social, political issues, and so forth, etc. Now, this is very interesting. This is very, very important. And they begin to use deductive logic or reasoning from a general principle to specific. This is a reverse from what we have in this stage right here, where they go from specific to general. Here they're going from general to specific. So they see things in society, they learn things in the classroom, they learn things from family sources and so forth. They begin to look at those things and begin to zero in on those things to get more specific information, right? To begin to see the application of those things in their lives and in society. So they take a general principle, right? In this stage, they take a general principle and try to fit it into specific information and trying to understand it from a single perspective and trying to see how this translates, right? So, for example, they take general principle of equality in society and begin to apply it to themselves and begin to apply it to their families. So we see these four stages of life, essentially how children learn and the different processes of learning and the different processes of interaction and explaining and seeing the world and understanding the world and analyzing the world and how they interact with people around them and how they compartmentalize and how they categorize information as they grow. So again, it begins with the sensory motor, which is again from birth to 18 months or to 24 months, and then it goes to operational, toddlerhood, 18 months to 24 months to age 7, and then the concrete operational ages, which is from 7 to 11, and then formal operational, which is adolescent through adulthood. Most people will, of course, think this way for the rest of their life when they get to this point. So this is Jane Piaget theory about learning through the different ages up to adolescent and adulthood.